A couple weeks ago, I got to fly to Bordeaux, France to play Assassin's Creed Mirage early. I got to tour the studio, talk to devs, and really get my first hands-on with the game, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys today. So before we jump in, thank you to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video and for flying me to Ubisoft Bordeaux. If you watch this and decide you want to pre-order the game, click the link below to pre-order Assassin's Creed Mirage, so you can play when the game comes out October 5th. I got to play almost 3.5 hours of the game, and my play session was split into two parts. The first part was very narrative focused, the very beginning of the game, seeing Basim start as a street thief and then seeing how he comes across the assassins, or the hidden ones. And then the second part was further into the story. So we skipped around, and this one you're actually hunting down one of the main targets in the game, and we get to assassinate them. So I got to do that and also run around the, completely open world of Baghdad. So that's how we're gonna divide this video. If you wanna jump around, I've left timestamps in the description below. The very beginning of the game is like other Assassin's Creed games, at least lately. You meet this person before they come across the Brotherhood, and then you see how they cross paths and eventually them joining. Now, something I was worried about on the narrative front was dialogue options. Are we going to stop and pick certain things for our character to say and watch that whole thing? I'm really happy to say we're not doing that. This is very much like a straight line narrative game in that you are Basim, he has a predefined set of choices, you're watching the cutscenes, you're not choosing. I was also pleasantly surprised by his face. The facial animation didn't look great early on, but during cutscenes especially, Basim looks great. In this first mission, you get your first taste of parkour, and I gotta be honest, it didn't feel great. It felt a little bit stiff at first, and I was worried, but then during interview time, I talked further about parkour with the devs, and they told me that they designed specific audio cues around Basim's experience. So in the beginning, you're gonna hear him take heavy breaths when he's sprinting around. He's less experienced. And then as you play the game more, you're not gonna hear that because he's got better stamina and he's a proven master assassin. So you're gonna feel that evolution. Skipping ahead to the first mission, there's a lot of tutorializing in this one, so it's kind of teaching you how this game works, and you're stealing a ledger for your handler Derwish, and this contract comes from the Brotherhood, so that's how Basim ends up meeting them. This is where I got my first taste of the detection system, and gosh, they talked so much during my time there about how they reworked this stuff, and I got to see this in action. I walked by Marco Maresca, senior game designer's desk, and he showed us sort of the vision cone and also the lines between Basim and the enemies. And they weren't lying when they said they are spending a lot of time on detection. That was a huge complaint for me in Valhalla. And whether that time spent is going to result in something that functions for stealth, I think the jury's still out. I certainly felt like it was better during my game time, but that's something that you can't really determine, I don't think, unless you have extended playtime with the game to test everything. As you've been watching, I got to take out a few guys, but Basim doesn't have the hidden blade. He's not part of the Brotherhood, so you don't really get to see assassination in action. But I did sort of get to skulk around, test out the stealth. I didn't get seen, which felt good, and I had to steal a key to get into a door, to steal the ledger, and then I completed the mission. At this point, after I turned it in, Ubi skipped me ahead forward to when Basim is fully in the Brotherhood and training to become an actual assassin. So I got to visit the fortress of Alamut, or at least what it looks like because it's in construction. And this was really a fascinating part of the game for me because this is very AC1. You really don't get to see how the Brotherhood functions, I would say on an organizational level, and also just on a more intimate level in most games. I asked narrative director Sarah Beaulieu about this. Why do you show all this instead of skipping ahead to where Basim gets the robe and the hidden blade, like a lot of games? And she explained to me that that's, core to Basim's motivation. He really wants to be an assassin. And so kind of showing how all of the inner workings of this, the gears and the cogs, how these are turning and how he, goes from street thief to master assassin, Alamut was a central part of that story. That's why it's an actual location you're going to visit and spend time in. As an old school fan, I was just grinning throughout this entire part of the game because I got to talk to different Brotherhood members and sort of see what their roles are. I got to see how Basim gets his eagle in Kidu. I got to go on a night patrol with one of the other Brotherhood members and, kind of see what his deal was. And then I also got to see the initiation, when they actually cut Basim's finger and he becomes an official member of the Brotherhood. You get to see a lot of interaction with Roshan, who is Basim's pretty much direct mentor. And you see a lot of the philosophy of the creed being talked about. And again, that's not something we get in the newer games. It's more of a side fare. You know, Basim's not a Viking, he's not a mercenary, he is an assassin. And so it's really cool to see this stuff. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil y'all's experience. I think this is stuff that you need to see and read and experience for yourselves. It's really cool. Moving on to the bulk of this playtest, where the reins were really kind of taken off of the experience, we were able to explore Baghdad, connect with an assassin contact, and work with them to hunt down and take out one of the main targets, one of the Order of the Ancients members. But before we get into specifics, I want to talk about the design of Baghdad, what it feels like to just be in this world. Before I get into this, I think Ubi's always been very good at decorating a world. I think their games have always been gorgeous from an environmental perspective, and also graphically, the bigger new RPG games, like these are really pretty games. I think there's no denying it. But functionally, this game is much smaller in scope. I mean, Baghdad is a single city. There's some outer regions that you can go to. There's Alamut, for example, which you can go to, but like the bulk of your experience is going to be in this one city in Baghdad. And functionally, it's so fun to be it, just to run across these rooftops, to climb things, to exist and be in social stealth and do your missions. There's so much nostalgic value to that, especially when you talk about being an old school fan and harkening back to those Ezio games where that was part of the fun, was just existing in these cities. I can absolutely confirm after my playtime that that's what you're feeling here. Of course, it is, you know, a mix between the old and the new. This is absolutely a game made within Valhalla's engines with certain tweaks, but it still brought me that, you know, really warm feeling, you know, of like, wow, I'm playing a city Assassin's Creed game. That is what Mirage is. And that's not just me saying it. Stefan Boudon, who is the creative director on the project, explained to me that that is absolutely what they were going for. They specifically mentioned nostalgia, which I think is super interesting. I asked him how, if this is a nostalgic experience, how will it appeal to fans of the newer games that don't necessarily share that love for the older games like me? And he said he's banking on the fact that that assassin fantasy is something that many people will enjoy, not just people that enjoy the older games. So that's doing stealth first, combat as a last resort, and really kind of following the creed in the way that you used to. They're hoping that that experience in and of itself will be something that's interesting and compelling to newer players. And I think that's an interesting test. Obviously, I can't speak on that because I do like the older games. This is a game that's specifically marketed towards me, I feel like. So will newer fans of the series like this? I really don't know. I think that's something that you have to decide for yourself. On to this section of the play session. So I got to meet with Kong, who is a contact that actually knows Basim from his street thief days before he became a member of the Brotherhood. And I like this guy. He has kind of a good rapport with Basim. He kind of reminds me of Yusuf a little bit from Assassin's Creed Revelations, sort of likes to joke around, likes to have a good time, but is also pretty serious about what he's talking about. He's going to help us get into this exclusive auction in order to meet the Order of the Ancients target that we need to take out. And so I went through a series of missions. I did a favor for him, got some tea leaves that he says were stolen from him. And then I also gathered some information on someone called the Harbor Master, who is supposed to have, you know, even more details on how we can get close to our target. And over the course of these missions, I got to do a ton of parkour. I got to really stretch and bend the detection system, see if it truly is possible to do that gameplay loop where it's you get seen, you vanish, you hide again, and then you strike from a point of advantage. Because again, they've told us this is a stealth first game. And that feels really solid to me, guys. It really felt like I was slipping into these locations. Even if I did get seen, it wasn't like mission over. I was able to escape and then reestablish myself, stealth in, and find the information I was looking for. I did the same thing with my target. Once I located the Harbor Master, I tried to be stealthy. I kind of hid behind this crate, but I saw an opportunity to open this cage. They saw me throw my throwing knife, and then I had to run away, vanish, and then reestablish my stealth. Now, what was funny about my specific experience is they forgot where I was, and then I was able to just hop down here and assassinate my target just like that. So I think this is a great way to illustrate, like, information is power. If you know how to get to your target and you have easy access to them, you can pull off a really quick, clean assassination. And you can also stumble into a really quick, clean assassination like I did here. So this is how it worked out for me, but I'm sure there was a very clinical, not seen, just completely ghost master assassin way to do this. This is when I leveled up and decided to use my skill points. So you're gonna get a look at the skill tree here. It's divided into 3 sections: Phantom, Trickster, and Predator. This is a very simplified version of what we had in previous games, and I'm all for that. I think way too much time was, spent crafting a build. This is all about being an assassin and unlocking better ways to do assassin stuff. I decided to spend my skill points on chain assassination, and as you can tell, certain skills as you get further to the bottom, they cost more skill points. So that means every time you level up, you're not going to be spending your points, which means less time spent in the skill tree, which again, to me, is a plus. At this point, I returned to Kong and then parkoured my way back to the bureau in Baghdad. And at this point, I think it's a good place to talk about parkour, because this was such a huge concern for me watching all of the early gameplay and listening to what Yubi was saying. There's some good stuff and bad stuff with this parkour. I'll start with the good. Basim feels faster. That was a big concern for me. He actually feels faster when you're running on rooftops, transitioning, doing animations, all of that stuff. No more sluggish assassin running like we had in Valhalla. Another good thing that really surprised me is that you can't climb everything. You have to look for footholds and handholds in order to navigate when you're climbing. I think this is huge. This is so important to me. It makes your decisions while you're running through the city actually matter. You're gonna get away from someone if you're running away if you use a better route. You're going to travel from point A to point B quicker if you are more efficient with your movements. So that was so nice to see. Now, the bad for parkour for me is that Basim's animations feel very magnetic. You're going to stick to certain spots where you didn't intend to, which that's a very nostalgic experience, right? We've been doing that since the beginning. But yeah, I would say they're trying to express momentum in certain spots with animations. Sometimes it feels like there is momentum, but there's no real momentum in this game. It's all animation based, and you'll feel that as you're trying to hop from pole to pole. It feels like he pauses for a little bit too long. For the vast majority of players, this is not gonna matter. Who cares? But I think you eagle-eyed, spectators will see this and point it out and be like, wow, this could look better. Totally agree. I think it definitely could look better. Back at the bureau, now you have your invitation to this auction, which gets you closer to your target. So you get some nice, juicy narrative stuff there. And this is when I looked at the tools system. Now, there's some cool stuff going on here. You can talk to this vendor and upgrade your tools, and it changes the way that they work. We're looking at the throwing knife. Here, you can increase how many you carry, the distance you can throw them, what they do when they hit enemies, and you can only have one of these active at a time. So it's like they're in tiers. You pick one from tier 1, one from tier 2, and one from tier 3. And just like with gear, you need to unlock these with resources. So that's steel ingots, leather, and components, which you'll find off of bodies in chests around the world. So I think this is a genuinely interesting evolution here. I mean, if you talk about the older games, you would literally just collect money and then spend money to buy a better version of what you had, or you just refill your tool belt, for example. I think it's inherently more interesting to spend resources to do this stuff. So I think this is definitely a welcome change. And it allows you to kind of craft an assassin loadout, So I'm specifically choosing the things that I think will be most useful to the assassin playstyle I'm using. Now, because it took me literally over 24 hours of travel to get to Bordeaux, I was pretty jet lagged, so I didn't use a lot of these tools in my gameplay. It sucks, I know, so I'm showing you some B-roll from, previous gameplays, but this stuff works really well. I was watching Joraptor next to me use it like an absolute pro. It was kind of crazy to watch him, carve through enemies with all these tools. This is very much a tool-based game if you get into combat and you want to set up stealth scenarios with traps and smoke bombs. After wrapping up my traps, I parkoured through the city to meet Roshan at the bazaar, because this is where the treasure is going to be, and now that I have my auction invite, I can get in. So this is what they promised: black box assassination missions. How exactly does it feel to do one of these in Mirage? From my experience, what I did is kind of walk through this bazaar and use my eagle vision to show me different leads on how to unveil the treasure's identity. So I worked with Kong. He needed me to do another favor, so I did something for him, and then he gave me a lead on the treasurer. I also found this merchant guy who was showing me I'm gonna sell this hairpin from the east at the auction later. So that told me that the treasurer is specifically interested in that hairpin. I also eavesdropped on this woman who mentioned the treasurer and then stalked her to a location and waited until she was alone. Then it was revealed that my target is a she and her name is Ning, so just a little more pieces to the puzzle. At this point, the game told me I had enough information to go to the grand auction. At this point, the treasurer revealed herself, and there was an interesting option I had, which is I could bid on the hairpin, and I ended up not having enough coin to raise my hand and win the hairpin, so this other random guy actually won it instead of me. So naturally, I had to go and steal it from this guy, and it was pretty hilarious. He was like watching me steal it, and then later I looked back and he was like, "Where is my hairpin?" So anyways, I talked to, I think it was Joraptor, and he told me that he had enough coin to bid on the hairpin, so he didn't have to do that little step where he stole the hairpin from that other guy. Now that I had the hairpin, I had something that the treasurer wanted. So in order to gain an audience with her, I needed to gain access to her area, but it was guarded by these mercenaries called the Ivory Coin. And in order to get into that area, I needed a brooch that showed that I was indeed part of their mercenary outfit. This led me on another little arc where I had to bribe a merchant to give me more information about the Ivory Coin, and then eventually I got to this place where I could assassinate this guy and get the brooch from the guild. At that point, I was granted access to Ning the treasurer, so she revealed herself, and there's this cool kind of back and forth between her and Basim. Eventually, this prompt popped up, and I was able to assassinate her, and this is interesting. So what you're seeing, I think, is the very directed approach to this black box assassination. I found every single piece of information. I slipped in without anyone worrying about who I was. Essentially what I would equate to in Hitman when you get the right outfit that gets you to the very top in the same room as your target. However, because this is a black box mission, I'm pretty sure there were multiple ways to do this, but I am curious and I'm not exactly sure if that's true. First off, when you get the 3 pieces of information to start the grand auction, did I need to do all of those little errands in order to have the grand auction start, or could I have skipped ahead with no information? Did I need to steal that Ivory Coin brooch in order to gain access with Ning, or could I have found some hidden route and just snuck in without her seeing me at all and then just stealth assassinated her? Now, I think this second part is true. I'm pretty sure I didn't need to gain access the way I did, but I could be wrong there. What I'm trying to get to here is I'm not 100% convinced that this is true black box. I think there are some narrative elements that will have to happen no matter what. And I don't know, man. I think some people will like this, some people won't. I think it makes perfect sense that the only way to draw her out was to be at the grand auction and to see her with his eyes. Like, that was necessary information to take out this target. I asked the narrative director, Sarah Beaulieu, about the tone of this game and how characters speak and act. And I specifically mentioned I didn't like the tone of previous games where things felt goofy at times. And she told me straight up, there's no goofiness in this video game. Like, people, they may make levity or light of situations. They may have character personalities that are a little more playful, but make no mistake, people are not goofy in this video game. They're very serious. This is an assassin game. And oh my God, I think I just lit up on the spot. That's just music to my ears. That's what I'm looking for out of the tone and the writing and the way people speak and act, you know? It just feels more real to me. It's safe to say that you're not going to run into a Marcos from Assassin's Creed Odyssey in this game. It just more fits the vibe of this game to be serious, and that's the direction they went in. That wasn't the end of my demo, though, because there's an exclusive contract that they told us only our group got to play. So I think that means the press got to play a different contract. We got to play the botanist. By we, I mean the creators. So here you get a little bit of narrative, like flavor text telling you who this person is and why they need to die, and also some rewards and an optional objective, which is to remain unseen. On my way there, I ran into this big fella, so this is a good opportunity to show you guys how combat works in this game. This interaction was kind of weird though, so let me explain. I threw a smoke bomb here on this big guy. These big guys you can't attack head on, they will just knock you over, very similar to older games. I threw my smoke bomb, got some hits in, and then he was still confused, and I was able to do an in-combat assassination with my hidden blade. Super satisfying. Then I was able to turn around because I had my chain assassination skill and throw a throwing knife and kill this guy too. Further along, I picked another fight with another big guy, and he uses an unblockable attack. So attacks like that are back. You have to dodge out of the way. You can't parry every single attack. Once again, you can try to attack these big guys head on, but they'll just parry your attack and then come back with a counter attack and hit you really hard. Eventually, he called backup. There was another guy attacking me, and I had to run away and disappear using that, hide and go seek mechanic from the older games. So again, this is very much harkening back to the way the games used to be. But also important to note that their whole spiel about this being a stealth first game, I think is absolutely true. However, you can be very good with the tools and kit them in the way that makes combat easier, and definitely something you can use. If you want to go running guns blazing, you can absolutely do that, which is true of the older games too, mind you. But the act of running away and finding a hiding spot, it doesn't feel wrong in this game like it did in the previous big RPG ones, where it was kind of like, I feel like I'm breaking the system, you just run out of aggro range and they stop chasing you. No, they keep chasing you in this game until you're able to break line of sight and blend. It's just a really nice feeling. Moving along, I actually made it to the area, which is like an exploration area. You can use your eagle to scout around and look for whatever your mission is. And this mission was to find where the botanist samples are kept. Now, unfortunately, I got myself seen because I wasn't careful enough with this guy. I was trying to sneak over to this little closet here in order to assassinate him, but he turned around and saw me. So that means that the contractor request of remaining undetected, I failed that, which definitely sucked. But it was fine because I ran away, reestablished my stealth, and then just went through and systematically took out the archers on the roofs, just making sure I could move through this camp without any worries. At this point, I was really wishing I had 2 hidden blades, but I didn't. I assassinated 2 guys standing next to each other, and it did that weird kind of thing within the last 2 games where it's like you can assassinate one guy and then the other guy pretty quickly. It feels like you got seen, but you really didn't. That's how it worked in this game too. So using a combination of my eagle vision, also Enkidu flying through the air and scouting for me, and also just like taking out guys and being super careful about the routes that guards were taking, I was able to find all 3 spots of where the botanist was hiding his medicine samples. And yeah, this felt like a nice kind of cool area to function in, to use all these different tools like the blow dart, the smoke bomb, the traps. I'm really mad at myself. I was just kind of in a daze again from traveling, so I just forgot to use this stuff. I also completely forgot to use assassin focus. So if you're looking for that chain assassination move where it looks like he's teleporting around, dude, I just didn't even use that. I was so mad at myself when I realized. But anyways, I wrapped up my mission, stealthed out of there, and then called my camel and rode through the city because I forgot that you could do that. You can ride a mount around in this game like the last few. I found the spot where I was supposed to drop off the supplies, and boom, ended my contract. I completed it. So that was it for like the story and side mission stuff that I did. There was one more open world activity that I did because I had some extra time, and that was to go after this chest full of gear. And man, it took me forever to figure out how to get in here, but I think it really shows the intricate way that parkour works in this game as opposed to, the more recent ones. You can't handhold absolutely everything. So this one piece of gear was really wedged in this area that was guarded by 2 guys, and I had to figure out a specific route in order to get there. This is what I'm talking about in terms of this game making you think more than previous games. I had to figure this out. This felt like a little puzzle, and I really enjoyed that. This also gives us a chance to talk about gear. There's only 1 slot in this game, and it's for your outfit, and it's just head to toe, unlike the previous games. And gear has perks like we had before. So this one, the Abbasid Knight outfit, looks really cool, by the way. Totally changes the way that Basim looks like and moves in the world. But this one regenerates health every 2 seconds while unseen, up to 50% max health. You can upgrade this in order to make this effect more powerful. So again, similar to what we had before. But it's kind of nice. I don't know if this is true of all pieces, but the fact that both of the outfits I had in this, preview were stealth related in terms of perks was really encouraging to me. Like, I'm sure there will be some combat focused options, but it really does feel like they're following through with that promise of focusing on stealth more than combat. So that's really all I got to see myself with my experience, but there's a few more details I want to talk about, things that I noticed from other creators that played. There's this interesting token system. So If you guys remember way back to the first game, there were different like factions. There were like thieves walking around. There are the, monk guys that would walk around and allow you to slip into places unseen. Instead of paying money to hire the services of these factions, there are tokens that you can find in different chests around the world, or you can win them from completing contracts like the ones that I showed you, the botanist. I really don't have a perspective on this because I didn't get to experience, but yeah, that just seems similar to how the upgrading tools works, just a more interesting, creative way to approach progression and a currency instead of just spending money. The other thing I didn't get to show you much is counter kill combat, because I just really tried to avoid combat. But if you're able to parry, you can pull off an instant kill on most enemies. That is what I understand from what they've shown us, and that is exactly how it worked before. So I think if you're really focused on using the hidden blade in combat and counter kill, if you want that old school feeling, you can absolutely angle your experience towards that. It is possible. You can dye your armor. So I'm showing you a little bit of it here. I only messed around with it once because I kind of like the classic white off-white look, but yeah, you can dye your armor like you could before. So yeah, guys, I came away really positive with what I played out of Assassin's Creed Mirage. I think narratively speaking, it's a really big step for people who want that assassin first experience. I mean, from the very start, it feels like that's important. Basim also has an internal struggle going on that I did see little bits and pieces of, but I absolutely don't want to spoil it. I don't think you guys are watching this video for details on that, so I didn't. I also feel like this is a great step in terms of gameplay and supporting that assassin fantasy and being able to escape, hide, run away, stealth first, combat as a last resort. All of the stuff that we've been hearing, the fact that parkour, specifically asks you to look for handholds instead of just holding RTA and climbing anything. The fact that dialogue is not choosing options like an RPG would. It is just very much a straight up story, like you're getting fed Basim's journey. In fact, I'm going to sidebar here. I asked, I think it was Stefan Boudon, the creative director, about that. Like, how do you make a smaller game in scope and size compared to the more recent ones? And he said that this format, the smaller game, better serves the narrative. It just allows us to show a story with better momentum and better weight, and the fact that you don't have a million other things to do supports that. So yeah, guys, basically, if I had to show up in Bordeaux with a laundry list of things that I wanted to see from Assassin's Creed Mirage, then I feel like it answered a lot of them for me. Like, I came away really, really high on this game. I came away believing that I think I'll like this more than the last two games at least. I have a soft spot for Origins. I think Origins is still a fantastic game. But after this experience, I feel like Mirage has a really good chance to be a solid Assassin's Creed game. One that does sort of follow those core principles from the past, but sort of approaches them in a more modern way. And like the creative director told me, hopefully it does appeal to that newer audience that liked Odyssey and Valhalla more than the other games. So that is it for me, guys. I want to extend a special thanks to Ubisoft again for sponsoring this video and also for flying me to Bordeaux and offering me the experience to interview devs and also meet up with creators. It's always such a cool experience to talk to these super creative people that are so talented, talking about stuff that they've spent years working on. It's just a really cool experience. And then being able to like tour the studio and see how they work, where they work, all of that stuff. It's just something that I'll never forget. So thank you again to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video and flying me out to Bordeaux. And if you like what you saw here, click the link in the description to pre-order Assassin's Creed Mirage, so you can play when the game comes out October 5th. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, remember to hit that like button, also subscribe for more videos like this, and hit the bell so you don't miss my next one. Thanks again, guys, and I will talk to you next time.